11 million Remington 870s, 7.5 million Winchester Model 94s, 11 million Marlin 60s. Every factory that built those guns has been sold off or shut down. The names are still on the shelf. Not the models, not the designs, the names. And in almost every case, the gun carrying that name today has less machine steel in it than the one your grandfather paid for. I spent years behind a sporting goods counter, selling these new and taking them in on trade. Subscribe if that is worth something to you. 10 American hunting guns, worst to best. What each one did, where a modern rifle beats it, and what the company did to the gun once the name was the only thing left worth selling. Number 10. The Sporterized Springfield 1903. I am starting with the one I would tell you not to buy because it explains everything that comes after. After the Second World War, surplus 1903. Springfields came home by the crate. Cheap, strong action, easy to work on. So a generation did the obvious thing. Cut the stock down, sporter barrel, drill and tap for a scope, and a war rifle became a deer rifle. It was one of the most common ways an American man got his first big game rifle, and there are still hunters in the timber every fall with one, usually their fathers. Here is where it lands today. An intact military 1903 averages around $1,149. A sporterized one averages $491, and a rough one changes hands around $115. Read that again. The same rifle, cut up to be a better hunting gun, is worth less than half of what it was worth left alone. I am not calling anybody a fool. In 1952, that was a smart, cheap way to feed a family, and the value ran the other direction back then. But that is the lesson. What a gun is worth is not stored in the name on the receiver. It is stored in how it was built, and whether it is still that thing. If you inherited one, hunt with it. If you are shopping for this season, this is not it. Every American rifleman piece I have read on the 1903 in the last decade treats it as a collector subject. Number 9. The Savage Model 99. This is the best engineered gun on the list, and it is number 9. The 99 came out of the Model 1899 and ran from 1899 to 1998. 99 years for a gun called the 99. Built in Utica, New York, then Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts, then Westfield. First hammerless lever action. It had a cartridge counter on the side so you could see what you had left. And it had the thing no other American lever gun had, a rotary spool magazine. That matters more than it sounds. Every other lever gun of the era fed from a tube under the barrel, which puts the tip of one bullet against the primer of the next, so no pointed bullets. The 99's rotary magazine held each round separately, so it could shoot a Spitzer, and a Spitzer carries velocity downrange. In 1920, that was bolt-action ballistics in a lever gun. It came in .303 Savage, .250, 3000, 300 Savage, and later .308, .243, .358, and .22 .250. Where the modern rifle wins is not the design, it is the ammunition. If yours is chambered in 300 Savage or .250 to 3000, you are in trouble because both have gone scarce, expensive, and inconsistent on the shelf. Parts and magazines are hard to find, and you need a gunsmith who knows the action. So what happened? Nobody bought Savage and gutted it. What killed the 99 is the same force that runs through this whole list, just without a villain to point at. That magazine and that action were expensive to machine. Toward the end, Savage dropped the rotary for a detachable box magazine to cut cost. As the skilled hands aged out and the machinery wore, cost went up, output went down, and the market wanted a cheap bolt gun. A writer at Guns America put it about as bluntly as you can. It could not be made so well today. Used, they average around $770, with a 99C in strong shape, running 600 to 800. My verdict, in 308 or 243, buy it and hunt it. In 300 Savage, it is a beautiful wall piece with a feeding problem. Number 8. The Browning Auto 5. John Browning patented it in 1900. Production ran from 1902 to 1998, first by FN in Belgium, later by Morocco in Japan. The first successful mass-production semi-automatic shotgun in the world. That hump on the receiver is not styling, it is the long recoil action underneath, where the barrel itself travels back with the bolt. Generations of American duck hunters carried nothing else, where the modern gun wins. A long recoil gun asks something of you. Set the friction rings for the load or it beats itself up, or short strokes. A gas gun soaks up recoil better and asks you nothing. Now here is what happened to the name. The Browning A5 you can buy new today is not the Auto 5. It is not a refinement of the Auto 5. Browning brought the name back in 2012 on an inertia-driven action, marketed as Kinematic Drive, built in Portugal, and the gun press was open about what it is. The operating principle sits much closer to what Benelli does than to what John Browning did. Browning kept the humpback receiver as a nod to the original and to how it points. Everything under it is a different machine. Browning has never hidden it. It is in their own marketing. Nobody is being lied to, but sit with what it means. The most recognizable shotgun silhouette in America is now a badge on a mechanism that has nothing to do with the gun that earned the silhouette. That is not a scandal. It is something colder. It is a company working out that the only asset with any life left in it was a shape, a letter, and a number. A Belgian Auto 5 used runs roughly $250 to $600. Sweet 16s $400 to $950. The good ones pass $2,000. A new A5 Hunter carries a manufacturer price near $1,979 and streets around $1,623. The new one is a good shotgun. It is just not that shotgun. Number 7. The Marlin 1895 and the 4570 Government. The cartridge is from 1873, designed for the United States Army and a single-shot trapdoor rifle, in a year when the Transcontinental Railroad was 4 years old. It has never gone out of production. Not once in 153 years, and it is not surviving on sentiment. A modern 300 grain load leaving the muzzle around 1900 feet per second makes better than 2400 foot-pounds. That is an enormous amount of work in a short, fast-handling rifle, which is why it is still the standard guide gun recommendation in bear country and why men are killing elk, bison, hogs, and deer with it. Hunters on the Marlin forums report taking elk from 125 to 225 yards, depending on whether they run a ghost ring or a scout scope, and one describes a 465 grain cast bullet at 1650. Those are user reports, not lab data, but they are consistent and current. Where the modern rifle wins, and American riflemen said it plainly, is reach. This is not a long-range cartridge, and it is not a versatile one. You are working inside about 150 to 200 yards, and the recoil is not gentle. What happened to it is the same story as every Marlin, which we get to shortly. What matters here is the ending. Ruger brought the 1895 back in 2022 with modern metallurgy, and the new ones are good. An SBL carries a manufacturer price around $1,400 to $1,500. The guide and trapper models $1,150 to $1,200. Real money for a lever gun. Also, a lot of gun. Number 6. The Pre-64 Winchester Model 70, 1936. They called it the rifleman's rifle, and for once, the marketing was not lying. Built on Mauser principles with a non-rotating claw extractor that grabs the case rim as it leaves the magazine and holds it through the whole cycle. Controlled round feed, forged receiver, 3-position safety, a trigger that broke clean. Jack O'Connor carried one in .270 Winchester, and half of American hunting still runs on that decision. Then 1964 happened. Olin, who owned Winchester, needed the Model 70 to compete with a rifle that was cheaper to build. So they took the controlled round feed out and went to push feed, where a small extractor only catches the rim once the round is already in the chamber. The receiver went to a cheaper process. Cut checkering became impress checkering. The rifle got less expensive to make, and it got worse. And every hunter who handled both knew it inside a season. That is why, 60 years later, you say pre-64 in a gun shop, and everybody in the room knows exactly what you mean. Here is the part that gets left out, and it is the part that keeps this honest. Winchester walked it back. Starting in 1992, they put pre-64 features back in, the classic brought controlled round feed home, and the rifles in production right now use it. So the story is not old good, new bad. There is a bad stretch in the middle, and you have to know where you are standing, where it stands physically moved to. New Haven built them until 2006, then FN in Columbia, South Carolina. Since 2013, they are made in Viana, Portugal, and Winchester says so in their own material. Money. A current featherweight, streets around 1100, listings 14 to 1500. A supergrade carries a manufacturer price near 1150. A shootable pre-64 runs 900 to 1500 and up, and a supergrade featherweight in top condition is a $3,000 to $4,000 rifle. Plenty of hunters think that pre-64 premium has gotten silly and that the current FN-built gun is more rifle for less money. That is an opinion, not a fact, but it is widely held, and it carries weight. Number 5. The Remington Model 700, 1962. A round receiver designed from the start to be mass-produced, accurate out of the box, and cheap to build. It worked. The 700 is probably the most common big-game rifle in America, with an entire industry of stocks, barrels, and triggers built around that action. I am keeping this short because we made a whole video about the trigger. What you need here is the ownership trail and one fact. The fact. On April 11th, 2014, Remington recalled X Mark Pro triggers built between May 1st, 2006 and April 9th, 2014 in the Model 700 and Model 7 because excess bonding agent could allow the rifle to fire without the trigger being pulled. That is a recall in Remington's own words, and it is the cleanest fact in this conversation. The older Walker trigger is a separate and murkier matter. It was never formally recalled. Remington denied there was a defect and also ran a voluntary replacement program and settled a class action in December of 2014. Law firms working these cases say more than 150 suits have been filed over the years, and CNBC counted more than 75 when they first reported it. I am telling you what was claimed and what was settled. I am not telling you a court decided who was right because it did not. The trail. Remington went through Freedom Group, went bankrupt in 2020, and got broken apart. Rem Arms bought the Ilion, New York plant in 2021 without taking on responsibility for the old guns. The brand names went out on license, headquarters moved to LaGrange, Georgia, and Ilion shut down in March of 2024. More than a century of rifle building in one town closed. If you buy a used 700, and you should, know which trigger is in it before you load it. That is the whole assignment. Number 4. The Ruger 1022 and the Marlin Model 60. Put these together because side by side, they prove the point better than anything else here. The Marlin 60 ran from 1960 to 2020, and they built more than 11 million. 11 million. It was also sold as a Glenfield and under store brands at JCPenney, Montgomery Ward, and Western Auto, which is why so many own one without knowing it is a Marlin. The Ruger 10-22 arrived in 1964 and has passed 8 million units, which makes it the best-selling .22 semi-automatic in America. These are the guns that actually feed people, not deer, squirrel, rabbit, and whatever is raiding the barn. More Americans have taken more game with these two than with everything else here combined, and a used Marlin 60 sits at $150 to $200, while a new 1022 carbine streets between $330 and $440. Now here is why they are here. The Marlin 60 took the same ride every other Marlin took, and it quietly lost capacity, going from 18 rounds to 14 in the late 80s. It is out of production, and Ruger has not brought it back. The 1022 never had that happen. Same era, same brutal price competition, same pressure to shave a nickel. Ruger kept building it and kept it good. That kills the excuse. Every time one of these companies cheapened a gun, the defense was that the market forced it, that you cannot build a rifle the old way, at a price people will pay. The 1022 has been sitting there for 62 years, being the counterexample. It was a choice. It was always a choice. Which brings me to the thing underneath all 10 of these. And if you take one idea out of this video, take this one. If you have not hit subscribe yet, this is the part worth doing it for. Here it is. Every gun on this list was built by a company that no longer exists in the form that built it. Winchester's New Haven plant closed in 2006. Marlin's North Haven operation went to Remington in 2007, and the skilled workforce did not follow the tooling. Remington went through private equity, went bankrupt, and got sold off in pieces. Savage stopped being able to afford its own best design. Browning's original was Belgian, and the name now lives on a Portuguese gun. The Model 70 is made in Portugal. The Model 94 is made in Japan. When a company gets bought, sold, and bought again, the balance sheet does not list craftsmanship. It lists trademarks. The tooling wears out, the men who knew how to run it retire, the plant gets sold for the real estate. What survives every transaction is the name, because the name costs nothing to carry and still makes a customer reach for his wallet. So each new owner does the same arithmetic. Keep the name. Cheapen what is under it. The name is doing the selling anyway. That is not a conspiracy. Nobody is in a room laughing about it. It is what happens when the thing being sold to you is a story rather than a gun, and it happened at Winchester, at Marlin, at Remington, and at Browning, for the same reason. But I promised you honesty, and the honest version has a second half that videos like this leave out, because it ruins the anger. Sometimes the new owner fixes it. Number 3. The Remington 870, 1950. More than 11 million built, the best-selling shotgun in history by a distance. Nothing else is close to. The 10 millionth came off the line on April 13th, 2009. 12, 16, 20, 28 gauge, and 4 on 10. A forged and machined steel receiver and twin action bars so it does not bind when you short stroke it in a blind with cold hands. Where the modern gun wins. A gas-operated autoloader kicks less, and the cheaper 870 finishes will rust on you if you're careless. And here is the cold open, in full. The Wingmaster and the Express carry the same model number. The receiver is the same forged machined steel in both, and anybody who tells you otherwise is wrong. What is different is everything else. The Wingmaster is polished inside and out. The Express is left matte and unpolished, with the machine marks still in it. The Wingmaster has an aluminum trigger group. The Express went to plastic, along with the magazine retention. The chamber is less polished, and the piece that comes up in every one of these arguments is the extractor. Solid machined steel on the Wingmaster, metal injection molded on the Express. Remington did not sneak this past anyone. The Express existed to hit a price point, and that put a lot of shotguns in a lot of hands, which is not a crime. But look at what it does to the shelf. A new 870 today runs about $500 to $600. A Wingmaster new is $800 to $880. And a used Wingmaster, the polished one, with the machined extractor and the aluminum trigger group, is $200 to $450, with Blue Book putting a strong one around $400. That is the best deal in American hunting right now, and it is not close. You pay less for the better gun. The only reason that is possible is that the name is on both, so the market cannot tell them apart. Number 2. The Marlin 336. The line goes back to the model 1893. The 336, as we know it, arrived in 1948 out of North Haven, Connecticut, in 30 to 30 and 35 Remington. Forged steel receiver, side ejection, a solid top drilled and tapped for a scope from day one. That last part is the entire Winchester versus Marlin argument, and it has been running in deer camps since Truman. The 94 ejects out the top, so scoping the traditional ones is a compromise. The 336 solved that in 1948, and it has a stiffer action, which is why it handles the 35 Remington, plus a better trigger. What the Winchester has is a slimmer profile, better balance, and half a pound less to carry up a hill. Both camps are right. What happened? 3 eras, and you need all 3. JM stamped, before 2007, North Haven. Then Remington bought Marlin, moved it, and most of the Connecticut workforce did not come along, and neither did usable tooling. What came out of the Remington years, which owners call Remlins, is documented in every Marlin forum on the internet. Canted sights, gaps between wood and metal, rough actions, feeding problems. Those are owner reports, not lab tests. There are thousands of them, and they say the same thing. Then Ruger bought Marlin and restarted it in 2021. And what owners say now, including men who spent years defending the JM guns, is that the Ruger Marlins are genuinely better. Fit, finish, accuracy. Their complaint is the price, not the rifle. So let me correct something the internet believes. The JM stamp is not a magic mark. Plenty of longtime owners will tell you the stamp alone does not make the rifle special, and that some Ruger guns shoot better. What is real is the market premium. A JM 336 brings 700 to 800 up to 1100, and a Remlin brings 5 to 600. New, the The Marlin 336 Classic carries a manufacturer price of $1,239 and streets around $1,320. One ammunition note. The 30-30 is everywhere and cheap. The 35 Remington has gotten thin because the makers run niche calibers in multi-year cycles. Buy the 30-30 unless you hand load. Number 1. The Winchester Model 94. 7.5 million rifles. No other American sporting rifle is in the same conversation. John Browning designed it. Production started in 1894, and the millionth was handed to President Calvin Coolidge in 1927. Mostly 30-30. Also 32 Winchester Special, 25-35, and 38-55. Winchester's own claim is that the 30-30 has killed more North American big game than any other cartridge. And while that is a company saying it about a company product, I have never heard anybody in the trade argue with it. The honest limits. With a traditional flat-nosed bullet, this is a 200-yard rifle at the outside. Hornity's Lever Evolution, a flexible polymer tip that is safe in a tube magazine, pushes that to 250 or 300. At 300 yards, it drops around 31 inches versus about 40.5 for a flat point. A real gain of 40 or 50 yards, not a transformation. A 150 grain, 30-30, at 100 yards, still moves near 1,974 feet per second with about 1,300 foot-pounds behind it, more than enough for the vitals of a whitetail at the range. You will actually shoot one in thick timber. And the trigger is bad and hard to fix. Now the part that should bother you. Winchester cheapened this rifle in 1964, same as the Model 70, going to cast and stamped parts where there had been machined ones, and ran it that way for 40 years. Then in March of 2006, New Haven closed, somewhere around serial number 6.5 million, and that was the end of the Winchester Model 94 as an American product. Production came back under license at Moroku in Japan, and the rifles Moroku is turning out are, by broad agreement in the gun press, excellent. Chuck Hawks called it probably the best Model 94 ever, better than the late New Haven guns they replaced. Not a nostalgic opinion, a fit and finish opinion. So the most American rifle ever built is now made well in Japan after the American factory spent 4 decades making it worse and then shut the doors. If that sits badly with you, sit with it. Pretending otherwise is how you end up paying $1,800 for a worse gun because it was assembled in the right zip code. Prices. A new Moroku 94 runs from about $1,200 up past $2,400 with a sporter streeting around $1,650. A pre-64 is $370 to $750 for a shooter, the rare ones reaching $3,000. A post-64 from the cheap era is $285 to $600. So what do you buy? If you want a deer rifle for thick country and you want it new, buy the Marlin 336 or the Moroku 94. Both are being built well right now, and that is not true of everything on this list. If you want the most gun for the least money in this video, buy a used Remington 870 Wingmaster and stop reading reviews. $200 to $450 for a polished, machined pump gun that will outlive your grandchildren. If you want a bolt rifle with history in it, a pre-64 Model 70 is the real thing, and the difference is engineering, not folklore. Just know the current Portuguese guns got controlled round feedback, so you are paying for the era, not for a feature that vanished. And if you inherited a Savage 99 and 308, hunt it. In 300, Savage, hang it up and buy something you can feed. If you are looking at a Marlin, check the stamp, but do not worship it. The JM Premium is real in the market. The Ruger guns are, by most owner accounts, better rifles. 11 million 870s, 7.5 million 94s, 11 million Marlin 60s. Every factory gone, every name still on the shelf. That is why a used Wingmaster runs $400 and a new 870 runs $550, and the cheaper one has more steel in it. The name on the receiver kept selling long after the company that earned it stopped existing. That is not a story about the good old days. Steel does not care what decade it is. It is a story about what happens when the last thing a company owns worth anything is a word, and every owner after that has one job, which is to keep the word and cut everything under it. Some of them fixed it. Ruger did, Moroku did, Winchester did on the Model 70 eventually, But you are the one standing at the counter, and nobody there is going to tell you which era you are holding. Now you know how to ask.